For the longest time, Stranger Things was the best show on Netflix. Very few of their originals had quite the same cultural impact. Well, that was until Squid Game came along. But if you ask me, Stranger Things was far superior, as far as Stranger Things 1 and 2 are concerned. We'll talk about the other seasons in due time, because I have very mixed feelings on those. However, the first season is near on perfect, taking inspiration from classic films such as The Goonies, E.T., Gremlins, Predator, Aliens/Aliens, and many more, and masterfully mashing it together with real-world conspiracy theories, like the paranoia against Russia during the Cold War. Sounds very fun, right? The aesthetic and nostalgic elements of this show were irresistible for millennials, like me. But even if you're not in that generation, I feel confident you're going to have a fantastic time, either watching this show for yourself, or watching me recap it, because the mystery and suspenseful horror, which really makes this show shine, is absolutely worth your attention. So let's crack on with this. It all starts off with the disappearance of a young boy named Will Byers. We start off in a laboratory, disguised as a building for the Department of Energy for the small town of Hawkins, a fictional town in the state of Indiana. There are some crazy, strange things happening here, with this scientist guy running away from something, and that something sneaks up on him. We then cut to a group of young lads playing D&D, and if you can resist the urge to bully them and demand them to stop having this weird type of fun, then let's get to know them. Will Byers. He has the most gentle demeanour of the gang, and the most troubled home life, causing him to be somewhat of a mummy's boy. And I do mean that in a nice way. I'm not just looking for a diplomatic way of calling him a giant puss. Lucas Sinclair. I would best describe Lucas as the straight man, which is a character writing term for someone who grounds the other characters when things are getting a bit too silly, and they're usually the first to speak up if they're about to take an unnecessary risk. Dustin Henderson. He's the comic relief of the gang, kinda playing into stereotypes here, as the bigger guy in the gang usually ends up being the clown, just like Chuck from the Goonies. Look at his tummy go. Childhood obesity is a laughing matter. And lastly, Mike Wheeler, aka Dungeon Master, aka leader of the gang. Kinda. They don't really treat him like a leader, but you'll soon see him becoming more of a lead character. They finish the game and head their separate ways home. Will, all alone on this dark creepy road, gets spooked off his bike by a weird creature. He sprints to the safety of his home, but still the creature follows. He loads up the gun in their shed, but this creature is able to sneak in right up behind him. And just like that, Will's gone. There's no blood, no signs of a struggle, he just up and vanished. The next morning, Will's mum and his brother are surprised to see that Will isn't home. And this scene is also surprising to us, because when Will came home last night, it appeared that the house was empty. This will be cleared up later. His brother's name is Jonathan, and his mum's name is Joyce. My favourite character in this is Jim Hopper. He initially comes across like an uncaring, lazy cop, and that's because the town of Hawkins usually has so little action going on that it hardly seems worth coming into work some days.
Phil Larson called, said some kids are stealing the gnomes out of his garden again.
Oh, those garden gnomes again. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm gonna get right on that.
But we soon see how he's a very caring and protective person who's willing to do anything in fighting the good fight, no matter how much it risks his life. By the way, the name Jim Hopper is a reference to a character from Predator.
Jim Hopper. Mac, cut him down.
He tries to reassure Joyce that in most cases where a kid goes missing, the kid ends up turning up and just spent the night round a friend's house. But she's certain that something is wrong here, and that Jim needs to take this seriously.
Just find my son, Hop. Find him.
Back at Hawkins' lab, they're investigating a strange hole in the basement, which appears to be a gateway into another world, and they're certain that the appearance of this hole is connected to a patient who just managed to escape their facility. She snuck into a diner and gets caught stealing food by the owner, who immediately senses that something is up here.
What the hell?
She has limited speech and has trouble conversing with this guy, who's being really kind towards her, giving her a decent meal and calling in CPS to hopefully get her some help. She doesn't know what her name is, only going by the code on her arm, number 11.
11.
Alright now.
Even spookier, it turns out she has telekinesis. When the social worker turns up, she takes out a gun and shockingly shoots the friendly guy. 11 makes a run for it before they can get to her. After questioning a bunch of people and inspecting Will's home, Hopper calls for the troops to organise a search party. Believing that Will might have put himself in a dangerous situation to protect the rest of the gang, as that's what he would do in D&D, the kids sneak out on their own search party. Just a heads up, a lot of their logic and plans is based on Dungeons and Dragons. It comes across a little silly, but that's the imagination of kids for you. Joyce gets a mysterious phone call where all she can hear is breathing and some weird alien noises. She believes that the boy breathing is Will, reigniting her belief that he's still alive.
What have you done to my boy? Give me that.
The episode ends with the gang stumbling across 11 in the forest. And at this point, if you're not hitting the next episode button, there's something wrong with you. The guys sneak 11 down to Mike's basement and try to communicate with her.
You're freaking her out.
She's freaking me out.
I bet she's deaf. Not deaf.
All right, that's enough.
There's a very funny / awkward moment where she goes to change into some fresh clothes, but she doesn't yet know the concept of privacy.
See,
Oh my god.
over there, that's the bathroom. Privacy. Get it?
They theorise that she escaped a mental hospital, and they come up with a plan where she'll be discovered by Mike's parents, without them figuring out that the boys found her first and were out last night past curfew. Mike is really sweet towards her, making her a cosy den to sleep in, and giving her a more human version of the name 11 of simply Elle. In the morning, he sneaks her some Eggo waffles, which, because of the symbolism of this gesture, becomes her favourite food in the show. Mike tells her the plan to get her back to where she came from, but she says no. The place she came from is run by bad men, and these bad men / bad people have the phone lines of the entire town tapped, keeping a close ear for anyone talking about any sightings of Elle or anything else strange going on. The Hawkins lab guys, who I'll call the scientists from now on to keep it simple, are inspecting Will's house for clues, finding a bunch of strange goo in the same shed where he disappeared. Jim Hopper and his troops are also finding clues on their search, finding a freshly torn piece of cloth right next to a storm drain, or whatever this pipe is, which leads into Hawkins' lab.
No way a kid crossed through there. I don't know. Scared enough one might.
Elle reveals that after looking at a picture of Will, she recognised him and remembers seeing him in the bad place, so they need to go on another adventure. But Mr. Sensible Lucas says nope, that's dumb and very dangerous, so I'm telling your mother. But then Elle says nope to his nope and uses her powers to slam the door.
No.
To try and explain the place where she saw Will, she flips their game board upside down and uses a demogorgon to describe the monster. Two characters I haven't mentioned yet are Nancy Wheeler, Mike's sister, and Barbara. They're getting ready to go to Nancy's boyfriend's house, where he's throwing a pool party. Nancy is looking for a good time, and to get effed up shotgunning beers. But Barbara is too cool for alcohol. She'd rather shotgun a good book. But in order to not look like a nerd, she gives the beer a go. But she mucks it up really bad, slicing up her hand.
Are you okay?
Yeah. Sorry you're bleeding.
I'm fine.
I don't think she is fine. In the bushes, Jonathan is breathing heavy and taking Polaroids of the steamy poolside action.
Slow down, baby.
But he's not intentionally being a creep. He was out here taking photos of the area, looking for clues on what happened to Will, and he got distracted by the screaming at the party. He thought it seemed like relevant documentation of what was going on this night. He hangs around for a long time, until Barb is left on her own, chilling by the pool. That is until she gets attacked by the creature. Will tries contacting Mummy again, but once again her phone gets blasted by an electrical surge. Will then uses the lights and stereo system to let her know that he's still alive. But he's not the only one trying to come through to the other side, as the wall starts bulging, with the Demogorgon trying to get into the house. Barb wakes up in the Upside Down, which is basically just Hawkins, but darker and covered in all this grime and weird alien goop. I wouldn't hold out hope for Barbara. She's dead. And the show barely ever mentions her again, which is quite funny considering the town's reaction to Will going missing. Speaking of Will, Joyce is trying to show Jonathan that Will's using the lights to communicate. Quite reasonably, Jonathan is like, "Bitch, are you for real? You're losing your damn mind."
No, it is not the electricity, Jonathan. Something is going on here. Just know that Will is here.
Oh, Mom.
Kind of a dick move on Will's part. Couldn't he just make the lights flicker a few times just to prove that she's not crazy? The kids arm up with slingshots and snacks, just in case they come across the Demogorgon and get hungry while fighting it. Elle claims to know where Will is hiding, and we'll see later if they find him. In the meantime, we have some flashback stuff showing how this white-haired fella, who Elle refers to as Papa, is asking her to sit for a bunch of tests as they monitor her abilities to crush Coke cans and glare at a cat until it dies. When she fails her task, she gets slung back in her cell, causing her to flip her shit and kill the guards instead, to prove her worth as a weapon to Papa.
Incredible.
Back to the present, Hopper and his troops are requesting access to Hawkins' lab because the whole town is freaking out about Will and they just want to confirm that he's not in this building. They reluctantly allow them inside and show them a bunch of CCTV showing that Will never entered the premises. Hopper says to his troops that he smells BS, as it was raining heavy on that night that they went looking for Will, yet the videotape they were shown for the same day has clear skies.
What are you thinking?
I don't know. But they're lying.
Joyce pushes her luck on the allowance situation by taking the whole store's supply of Christmas lights,
Joyce.
Just ring me up, Donald.
and her friends are starting to worry about her state of mind, with Mike's mum Karen checking in. Mike's youngest sister Holly is here too, and while the grown-ups are chatting, she notices the flickering lights leading into Jonathan's bedroom. Joyce then flips out at them and tells them to get out and leave her alone, cause it's her turn to play with the lights. Will does eventually manage to prove that he is still alive and here spiritually, and he does so by using Joyce's cool Ouija board thing to spell out the word here, but then he spells the word run, because once more the monster is coming. Jonathan gets spotted processing his creepy Polaroids, and Nancy's boyfriend, Steve Harrington, breaks his camera in revenge.
This isn't creepy at all.
I was looking for my brother.
No, this is called stalking.
As Nancy and Jonathan's families are friends, she doesn't join in calling him a freak, and gives him a look as if to say, I know you're not really a freak, and I'll hit you up later. Okay, back to the kids. They're frustrated at Elle because she's taken them back to Will's place, saying that's where he is now, but they just can't see him because he's hidden. Their arguments get interrupted by sirens, and when they follow the emergency vehicles, they end up at a quarry, where Will's body has just been found in the water. The kids are having trouble believing it, and even I, as someone that knows that Will is still alive in the series. Whoa, spoiler alert.
Ahoy! Spoilers, mateys!
I actually had trouble remembering how they were able to find a body here when there ain't no body to be found. Hopper is consoling Joyce, hoping that when she goes and sees the body, it will help her to accept her loss. Again, Will. If there was ever a good time to get those lights flickering, now would be ideal. Mike is pissed at Elle, believing that she lied about Will being alive, but then she uses her powers to get on Will's radio frequency, and they can hear him singing.
Should I stay or should I go? Should I stay or should I go now?
Hopper gets suspicious when the town's coroner suddenly gets replaced by a new guy, and Joyce storms out of the morgue, not believing the body to be Will's. Hopper then questions the deputy who found Will's body, as it doesn't make sense why he was on patrol there. When he doesn't cooperate, Hopper gives him a few slaps of encouragement until he reveals that finding the body was secretly a coordinated event. Hopper then makes his way into the morgue, and at first all seems legit, but then he notices that the body has a strange rubbery texture, and when he cuts into it, it's completely filled with fluff. The kids make a plan to get Elle to a stronger radio and establish proper communication with Will, and their science teacher Mr. Clark happens to have a powerful radio in his AV club. Mr. Clark ends up being quite a crucial character, helping the kids understand the science parts of their science fiction journey.
Science is neat, but I'm afraid it's not very forgiving.
They give Elle a makeover so she doesn't stand out too much.
Wow. She looks
Pretty.
Before the time comes to use the radio, they attend the assembly honouring Will. Seeing that the school bullies are mocking the event, Mike pushes one of them over, and before he can retaliate, Elle uses her powers to immobilise him, which makes him piss his pants.
Dude, Troy peed himself.
When Elle tunes into the radio, they can hear him bashing against the wall, the very same wall that Joyce is standing next to. The wall has temporarily turned into this weird plasticky plasma wall that disappears as soon as contact is lost. Nancy's helping Jonathan process more Polaroids to look for clues on what happened to Barbara. And when they see the monster in one of the pictures, Jonathan realises that Mummy isn't going loopy.
I thought she was crazy, but she said that's not Will's body, that he's alive.
And if he's alive?
In Hawkins' lab, the scientists are once again trying to venture into the basement hole. And if I may take a second to give this show one slight criticism, while most of the visuals are amazing, the CGI on the basement hole is at times really crap looking. Well anyway, the guy they send in ends up being the monster's dinner. The kids wonder how Will can be heard at a place, but not seen at that place. Elle describes his location as being the Upside Down, and naturally these kids know all about dark dimensions because of the lore of D&D. But now the question is, how do they get there?
We can't shadow walk, but maybe she can.
They attend Will's fake funeral, because it would be rude not to, and at the wake, they talk with Mr. Clark about the theory of other dimensions. He gives an example of how an acrobat can traverse a rope in only two directions, whereas a flea is less restricted, being able to use the side or even the underside of the rope to travel, aka the upside down. Hopper sneaks into Hawkins' lab, taking out the inept security guard and getting hold of a door pass. He makes it down to the basement hole, before they eventually capture him. Expecting to wake up dead, he instead wakes up back home, and he immediately tears his place apart, looking for a bug device. And there it is. They were listening to him the whole time. They were also listening to the kids when they were making contact with Will, so they sweating now about their operation being exposed. Hopper goes to Joyce and shares the good, albeit still troubling news, about Will's fluffy body. And it's a really nice moment, seeing Joyce being validated on what she knew to be true, but had everyone doubting her. The kids wonder if there's some kind of gateway to get to the Upside Down. Dustin remembers Mr. Clark saying about such a gateway needed a massive amount of power, and Dustin notices how everyone's compass is pointing to the incorrect north, the needles being redirected by the energy of the gate.
Meaning, if we follow the compasses north,
they should lead us to the gate.
They hike for a very long time, and after a few direction changes, they realise that something else is upsetting their compasses. Lucas is sure it has to be Elle, as she doesn't want to go back to where she came from. The boys end up in a scrap, arguing about Elle's intentions, and Elle breaks up the fight by force pushing Lucas. He's okay, but Elle has fled the scene. While out hunting the monster, they come across a wounded deer, but before they can put it out its misery, it gets snatched away. Instead of doing the sensible thing and getting the hell out of there, they continue their hunt. They somehow manage to lose each other, but then Nancy finds a nice gooey hole in a tree and thinks, oh, that looks inviting, let me just jam myself right in here. Looks like she found a way into the Upside Down, and she's not alone in here. Following Nancy's echoey screams from the Upside Down, Jonathan finds the goop tree and just about manages to pull her out before the Demogorgon gets her. I'm choosing the episode called The Monster to stop referring to this thing as the monster. Steve Harrington is looking around for Nancy and checks in on her room, And looks like creepy old Jonathan Byers is making her feel safe and secure. But no, he really is. It's not what it looks like. Hopper recalls seeing a kid's room at the lab, but with no kid in sight. And maybe this kid was the one seen at the diner. And also maybe this kid is connected to a lady who lost her daughter Jane many years ago as she got taken by a secret agency, aka the scientists. They track down the aggrieved mother Terry, who due to the trauma lost her mind and is basically non-verbal.
What was your relationship with Dr. Brenner? You guys keep in touch?
Her sister explains what happened, and it turns out that she was a willing participant in some revolutionary experiments that explored the full extent of what the human mind can do. All the while during these experiments, they didn't know that she was pregnant, and neither did she. Public record is that she miscarried, but the mum knows in her heart that Jane is still alive and she has special abilities. Even though her name is officially Jane, I'm going to keep on calling her Elle. Jonathan and Nancy buy some heavy duty hunting supplies so they can go and kill the Demogorgon. And while loading the car, some rando calls out to Nancy about her new movie being advertised in town. All the Right Moves, starring Tom Cruise and Nancy the Slag. I don't know if the actual word is allowed. Nancy storms down the alley to demote boyfriend Steve Harrington to ex-boyfriend. He pushes Jonathan's buttons about his home life, and the two end up brawling, with Steve somehow losing the fight, despite being the popular kid. Popularity gives you strength. Every time you hit subscribe, my muscles bulge a little more. Elle walks into a supermarket, looking all grubby and bleeding from her nose. A standard look for Elle at this point, but still the townsfolk are freaked out. She calls this guy a mouth breather for simply asking if she's okay, and then she steals multiple boxes of Eggos. Despite this being a very fun scene, especially when she smashes the sliding doors together, it's hard to look past how much of a dick she's being here.
Mouth breather.
Lucas no longer cares to be Elle's friend, even though she's the only viable weapon to use against the Demogorgon. He goes off on his own to find Will. He gets to the fence surrounding Hawkins' lab and sees the scientists preparing to leave. Mike and Dustin go out to find Elle, but only end up finding trouble with the bullies, who due to the embarrassment of the pea situation, have brought along a knife this time. They demand to know how they made him piss his pants, and if Mike doesn't jump into the quarry to make things even, he'll slice up Dustin. Mike nervously takes the jump, but then suddenly stops falling, floating around in mid-air. Yeah, you guessed it, Elle is back on the scene, and she looks pissed.
She broke my arm! My arm! Go.
The episode ends with a Hawkins lab lookout spotting the kids coming back home, and as we know, the scientists are readying up to come take them in. Mike is sweet talking Elle, saying she doesn't need this wig to be pretty. And to be fair, that wig is not professional grade. And it's totally the wrong colour for her eyebrows and complexion, girl. That's outrageous, girl. They go to share a kiss, but then Dustin bursts through the door with an emergency broadcast from Lucas warning that the bad men are coming. They hop on their bikes and pedal their little legs with all their might. Elle uses her powers to flip one of their vans up in the air. An act so cool that Lucas now forgives Elle, and she apologises for the compass misdirections. The scientists question the Wheeler parents and warn that Mike is in real danger, so they need to cooperate.
We want to help him. We will help him. I give you my word. But in order for me to do that, you have to trust me.
I like this scene because it's an example of how this show separates itself from its inspiration of wacky coming-of-age movies by actually taking the consequences of these events seriously. The spirit of this continues in the sheriff's station. Jonathan's being questioned on why he has a bunch of Demogorgon hunting tools in his car. And the bully kid's here too, recounting the unbelievable story of what happened at the quarry. Hopper now knows that he needs to find the kids and find out what this Elle character is all about. The kids are hiding from the scientists, who have helicopters in their budget for hunting down children. Joyce finds Will's radio so that Hopper can find out where they're hiding and save them just in the nick of time.
All right, let's go. Let's go!
Everyone is united at the buyer's house, and it feels great to have this moment of everyone being on the same page of what's happening, so together they can make a plan. They set up a sensory deprivation tank in the school, so that Elle can fully transition her mind into the upside down and find out where Will is hiding. And also Barbara if she has time. Don't worry about her too much though. Just, you know, if you bump into her, then maybe bring her back too. Well, she does find Barbara, but she's feeling a little sluggish. She then finds Castle Byers, the clubhouse Will made near his home, and Elle confirms his location.
Tell him I'm coming. Mom is coming. Mom is coming.
Mom, she's coming for you.
Joyce and Hopper break into Hawkins' lab, but this time they don't get very far. Let's hope they can get to Will before it's too late. He's got a season 5 teaser trailer to film, and he's not allowed to turn up dead for it. Dr. Brenner, aka Yel's papa, speaks candidly about the situation to assure Joyce that they're not keeping secrets here. They also want to stop the Demogorgon and save Will's life. Joyce doesn't really buy it, due to the whole fake body situation.
We had a funeral. We buried him. And now you're asking for my help?
They're not being so gentle with Hopper, who knows that he needs to strike a deal where he swears to silence, otherwise they'll make him disappear. Looking to resolve this situation in the least damaging way, they allow Hopper and Joyce to suit up and go find Will. The sequence of them walking through the upside down version of Hawkins is really visually pleasing.
Get away from her, you bitch!
When they find Will, he's got this gross and extremely long tendril jammed right down his neck. But after some chest compressions and a fresh oxygen supply, he turns out okay. Kinda skipping to the climax of the episode here, but we already knew he survives this, so I didn't really want to piss around and just get to the point. We got some Hopper flashbacks showing the trauma he suffered when he lost his daughter to cancer, and this shows us why he's become so determined to save Will Byers, and why outside of his duties he lives in a kind of depressed and slobbish way. Nancy and Jonathan set up a trap for the Demogorgon, and Steve almost ruins it by barging in on their plans, naturally very confused about what the hell they're doing. By the way, the remainder of this finale has a lot of scenes with strobing lights, so if that kind of thing messes you up, I'd recommend listening rather than watching. The Demogorgon comes back, and they do all they can to kill it. Steve making his redemption here by coming in with the assist using a spiked baseball bat. When the Demogorgon steps into the trap, Jonathan sets it ablaze, and this Demogorgon is now toast. But that's not the end of the drama, for there are more Demogorgons, and the scientists are closing in on the kids. There's kind of a shocking moment where Elle uses her powers to melt the brains of a bunch of bad guys, and this level of extreme telekinesis knocks out her energy supply for a while. She wakes up in time to take out the last Demogorgon, and this time she uses so much energy that not only does she atomise the thing, but she also phases herself out of this world. It's all very sad, but then fast forward to Christmas time and we see Hopper leaving some leftovers and Eggos for someone who's been living off scraps and Eggos. Not sure who the person is, maybe it's Barbara. All seems happy and back to normal, but Will feels there is something wrong inside, and even after coughing it up, he knows that things have not gone back to normal. He plays it cool for now, wanting to be simply having a wonderful Christmas time. So yeah, that was a great first season, and you're great for being here. Maybe you're new here, and if you are, that means the algorithm is actually helping me for a change, and the Illuminati isn't trying to censor my words, my very important words. Or maybe you're a channel member or Patreon supporter, fighting the good fight and helping me stay alive. If your name is floating past the screen right now, my deepest thanks goes out to you. Stick around for season 2, which I'll be uploading very soon.